All say the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
The next order of business we have is the fire evacuation announcement. In case of fire, there are two ways to exit these chambers. To my left, exit through the council chamber doors, turn left, walk down one flight of stairs and out of the building. Or exit the door to the rear of these chambers. In either case, once out of the building, walk a safe distance away from the building. If we can, John, could we call a roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Frank Alimo.
Here.
Joseph Muley.
Here.
Kenneth Helinski.
Here.
Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Patrick Hooper.
Here.
And Walter Cruzel.
Here.
Next order of business is approve the minutes of January 11th.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of January 11th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions? Linda?
Yes, on page 5 of our minutes, third paragraph down, motion made by Linda DeGray, seconded by Patrick Hooper. Patrick is an alternate, and he was not seated for that public hearing.
Okay. Matt, do you have any idea what we have to do with that, or?
What I would
The motion was never
suggest,
seconded.
well, what I suggest, we would typically go back and look at the video, because we keep video, we keep, the YouTube, these are all archived.
Yeah.
So we can go back and we can review that again. I can't do that right now, obviously. So maybe you could make a motion, table
make
these
a-
minutes until the next.
I make a motion to table the minutes from January 4th. No, January 11th, I'm sorry.
Second.
All in favor of tabling?
Here.
One other comment, even though I missed it at the time, in the approval of the minutes of December 21st. I was marked down here as approving those minutes. I abstained because I wasn't here on the 21st, so if we could take care of that too, Matt.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Next item, town attorney's report. Is there one? Is there a town attorney's report, Matt?
I don't believe that we have a report. If we did, we typically try to put it in your packet. So if there's nothing in your packet, then
Okay.
maybe next meeting.
We don't seem to have any need for an executive session. Anybody see a need? Okay, next. Enforcement officers report.
Nothing to report at this time.
I would like to ask one question on that,
Certainly.
because I know we have a couple of hearings that were on the schedule for tonight that are tabled
Correct.
because the signs weren't up, so the public notification wasn't made. I'd just like to ask a question because I don't know. Does anybody check that those signs are up the day they're supposed to be up? Or could we have someone from the planning department check them or something so we don't wind up in this situation? Because
Right.
what it's going to do is it's just going to make the next agenda longer. And we're trying to space these out so we have decent times. Is there any way we can do that?
Yeah, typically what we do is they'll come into the office, they pick up the signs. So that, I think, kind of is an indication to us that they know what they need to do. We tell them the 10 days. We have them give us an affidavit oftentimes they give us a picture of the sign to demonstrate for the file that they've done it. Do we check every site? We don't. Rick, if the zoning officer or one of us is out doing some kinds of inspections around the town, they might take a drive-by just to make sure that it's up. It typically doesn't happen very often where people will miss their signs. It's very unusual to have two. My experience here in the last couple of years has been maybe we had one or two over a 2-year period or so.
Just a comment from looking at it
Yep.
and saying, okay.
Yeah, we'll try to make sure that applicants
Oh, there he is.
get these done.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I think I'm here.
Yes, you're on.
Guys see me?
We can see you and hear you.
Thank
We
you.
can see you, yep.
All right, good evening. Thank you very
Good evening.
much. Continue. Thank you.
Okay. Public communication and petitions. Anybody from the audience like to speak on any issues? Seeing no
It's
hand.
not on the agenda.
Hmm?
Issues that are not on the
Issues
agenda.
that are
Yeah.
not,
I don't see any hand.
you have to ask 3 times.
That's 3 times.
Okay, well, I'll ask another time. Anybody want to speak about items that are not on the agenda? Or that we have public hearings scheduled for? Let's do one more time. Last time. Let's take another shot. Still hearing no hands, seeing no hands and hearing no one. We'll move on. Bond releases. I don't see any on the agenda, Matt, nothing? Hey. Continued public hearings, there's nothing on the agenda. I'll keep going. New public hearings. Public hearing 3084. We've tabled that because of the lack of signage in front of the premises. Also, public hearing 3086. That's the same. And now we're on to public hearing 3087.
The 3086, I can tell you that the sign is up. I live in that neighborhood.
Okay, but evidently it was not up.
No, I don't think it was, but
at the
it is
time.
now. Yeah.
So we'll put it on the agenda for the next time.
Right. We're ready with public hearing 3087?
3087, please.
Okay, yeah, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at the regular meeting on Thursday, January 25th, 2024, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers at 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following. Public hearing number 3087, 50 Weymouth Road, application for modification of Craft Cafe liquor permit per section 4.90, Charles Mastrobateri, applicant, owner, map 16, lot 0111, R44 zone.
If you would, please state your name and address and into the microphone, turn the microphone on, if you would, please.
Charlie Mastroberti, 54 Weymouth Road,
Okay.
Enfield, Connecticut.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, state the case?
Yeah,
Okay.
make your presentation.
Okay. Requesting just a modification to my special use permit, to allow to offer wine and hard cider at the brewery. And mainly I'm doing this because all my competitors in the area, hold the same license. The state of Connecticut streamlined the operation to be able to do this for breweries. We have to go by strict guidelines where we can only offer Connecticut-made products. In other words, if we offer wine, it has to be from Connecticut. Cider has to be either made at the brewery or, again, from Connecticut. But that's it, basic.
Okay. I'm just going to ask one question, then I'll turn it over.
Sure.
My question becomes, because you're only allowed to have merchandise or liquors that are made or produced in the state. That means the only thing, at least as far as I know, that you can serve is Connecticut wines and Connecticut ciders. So, hard alcohol, I don't know of anybody that makes it in this state. Maybe there is, I don't know.
Oh, there is. I have a friend that actually owns a distillery, so,
Okay.
yeah, they're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and your plan is to deal with wines and ciders?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Linda?
Just a quick question, Charlie. Are you going to start producing wine yourself, or are you just going to offer local wines from the local vineyards?
A bit of both.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But mainly it'll be bought, but we will produce a little.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. Any questions from folks out here? Any comments? Seeing none.
Lori's got a comment.
Laurie, you have something?
Oh, you're muted.
Laurie, go ahead.
Yeah, I know I'm muted. Okay, thanks, Hal. This is a craft brewery. He has received that approval prior to this night, and he is up and running with that. The only change is adding the wine and what they call the craft liquor license. So nothing else changes with the site or parking or anything of that nature. So I did notice I made a mistake with the motion, and John, if you could please change the craft cafe or the craft brewery to craft cafe liquor permit.
Excuse me, Lori, this is on your motion?
Right, on the actual motion. I only have craft brewery. It should read craft cafe liquor permit on the motion.
It says craft beer.
I don't see where she's.
It says farm brewery to allow manufacturing storage of retail sale of craft beer. Are you talking about? On the motion?
On the motion.
Right.
Like page, so I think it's page 4.
Page 3.
Yeah, I have it on page
Page
3.
3.
I'm on page 3, yeah.
Okay, so motion to approve PH 3037 instead of the retail sale of craft beer on this, at the end of the second sentence.
Yeah.
If you could please replace that with craft cafe liquor permit.
Craft cafe liquor permit.
Yes, sorry. My mistake. I apologize.
Okay,
That's my only comment.
all right.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I have a comment. It's it's going to read, to allow manufacturing and storage of retail sale of craft cafe? Doesn't sound correct.
The sentence doesn't.
Wording
That's
isn't-
the way the state licenses, and Charlie might be able to clarify that as well, but craft cafe liquor permit.
Can I offer we just say retail sale of craft cafe liquor?
Yeah.
And leave out the word permit.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's better.
That makes more sense.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Anybody else? Linda?
Just for clarification, this is PH 3087, and the motion is for PH 3037. Which one should it be?
The legal notice was 3087, so it should read 3087.
3087.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice catch, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
The previous one was 3037.
Right. I got a clarification question, Mr. Chair. And probably to the to staff through the chair, but Matt, site-specific conditions number 9 and 10 are crossed off on this.
Yeah, I would defer to Lori. My assumption is that those were crossed off because those were part of the 3037, and they've probably been done.
Right.
Since he's up and operating.
So with respect
That
to
is
this,
correct.
with respect to this, there's going to be 26 conditions rather than 28, because they're eliminating those two, right? Is that,
I think that'd be accurate.
yeah, okay. All right, that's it, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Does anyone see any reason to hold this? Or should we just move on it? We will,
We need a motion to close.
well, that's what I was going to ask for.
I make a motion to
Public
close public
participation.
hearing?
Okay, I have
Did you
a
ask for
second.
public participation?
I asked for it. Nobody
Second was
raised their
Ken.
hand and nobody signed.
Ken was the second to close? Thanks.
All in favor of approval of this public hearing of this motion? And if you could read the motion, John?
Let's
I-
vote
I
on,
think
let's vote on closing the hearing.
We have to vote on closing it.
Oh,
Right.
we have to vote on everything?
Exactly.
Fortunately, yeah.
You got to vote to go to the bathroom.
No, I don't.
You could just do a show of hands for
Yeah, show of
closing
hands.
If we could
Yeah.
just have a show of hands for the approvals,
for closing the hearing.
close the hearing,
It's unanimous, okay.
3087.
Unanimous?
Aye.
All right. Now I will entertain a motion to approve.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3087, 50 Weymouth Road, special use permit application to establish a farm brewery to allow manufacturing and storage of retail sale of craft cafe liquor. Charles Mastrobateri, applicant owner, map 16, lot 111, R44 zone.
Second.
Comments? All in favor?
No, she gets it.
We got to do roll.
Oh, the roll call.
Be a roll call.
We
Yeah,
can't do that.
Francis Alimo,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Kenneth Helinski,
4.
Vincent Garillo. 4. Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
And John Petronella is 4. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Under old business, which is our next item on the agenda, a review and approval of the bylaw changes that we made last meeting.
I'll defer to Lori.
Laurie left the room.
Now she's coming back.
So, I was just getting my note. So, we gave you the sheet that showed all of the revisions that were approved through the commission, the Chairman Alima's recommendations. So I would recommend that, provided you all agree with it, that you make a motion to approve that. But with that said, I have been reviewing the other parts of the bylaws, and there's some just minor things that probably will need to be changed, like Director of Development Services is in there instead of Director of Planning. So they're very minor changes, but we could review those at the next meeting. But since the last meeting you already reviewed the changes that we proposed, you could make a motion to approve those. If you are all in agreement, of course.
Well, we'll find that out, won't we? Okay.
I make a motion to accept the approved changes of the bylaws.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Linda?
Yeah, you're going to see that I have a lot of discussion and
That's okay.
questions. I've been looking at this, and I do have some concerns about putting the commission's business before the applicant's business. The applicants come to us, they've already paid the town a lot of money, hundreds of dollars, for their applications to be heard, and to make them wait instead of us doing our business after we've heard the applicants, I feel is kind of unfair to them, since we're here to help them, and we've overcome a lot of negativity about planning and zoning is hard to go through. We've worked really hard to make it very friendly and to put our business before the applicant's business, I feel is a little unfair. But that's my opinion, so.
Just as one comment with that, one of the things that Frank brought up last time was that the people sitting here, if they have to wait until the end of the meeting to hear whatever the commissioner's comments and correspondence is, that they could be here or never hear it because they go home after the public hearings and stuff. So that was part of the reasoning for putting that where it is.
I do understand that.
Okay.
And we do not force the applicants to leave after we've made a decision on their application. And then there's always the opportunity to watch the rest of the meeting on YouTube, on ETV,
Okay.
if they're interested. So I just, again, my personal opinion, feeling that I know the chairman wanted to follow the town council, but the people come before the town council have not paid the town hundreds of dollars for their applications. They come because they are offering something or they're presenting something to the town. These people are worked very hard to give us these applications and spent a lot of time developing it. So
Okay.
I feel like
Frank?
we're hurting them.
Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so that's a good point that Linda made, but I would actually say to use that for, for even more, that we should say our business first, so the applicants can hear it and everybody can hear it. I think it's important that people coming before us know exactly, what we're doing, what staff is doing, and they can get an understanding of what's going on. Some people, don't understand. So I think, Linda, that's even a stronger point from my side to have, my opinion, to have the applicant actually hear what the commission is doing. That's what I think. I think it's even, that's a good point, but I think it enforces, what I had to say about it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Does that, Frank, that's a good point, but does that maybe force people that are here to have us hear their applications to sit through some of the stuff that we talk about that they might not necessarily find important to them? Just a thought.
Well, I think it's very important to be as transparent as you can. So everybody's, inclusive in what we're doing. So that's my feeling. I just want everything to be out there. And, applicants do go through a lot, like Linda said. And I think it's an educational piece for, everybody to, hear what we're doing and what we're talking about. So I would say, no, I think it's a good thing. What I would say, though, is I think part of what we may find out that, just to go back on the minutes, when you want to speak, I think you have to, go through the chair, not just point of order next time. Go through the chair. Just want to put that out there, and then, then ask, like you just asked me a question. So you should ask the chair first to be recognized, and then go ahead. Feel free to say whatever's on your mind. Just point of order.
Nope, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, just as a position, I'd like to just state that the agenda is somewhat flexible according to, I know it's going to be in our articles and all of this, but the chair at any time, I think, can ask the commission to change the agenda. Okay, so if it so happens on a particular night, we have a substantial amount of correspondence or committee or our business that we have to discuss, we may be able to make a decision on that particular night to just delay a portion of it or all of it or whatever. I think we have that flexibility. So I don't really have an issue with changing it and putting our business first. But I think we ought to keep in mind if there are some lengthy public hearings that we feel we're going to have, we could always revise our agenda to accommodate the people who are here doing the public hearings.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments? All right, I'm only going to make one. Okay, Frank, go ahead. Go ahead, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's a very good point that Ken just made, because we often do that. Ken, thank you for that.
Push.
You got one down the end.
Go ahead.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I was going to make, I think, a correction in terms of what we got as the new order of business. I think a minor detail. I think we said outside correspondence would be before commissioners' correspondence. That is what our minutes say. Frank, I think that was your intention. If the chair can confirm that, but according to our minutes, we said director of planning, then outside correspondence, then commissioner correspondence.
This is the new side. Thank you.
Mr. D'Antonio, so the chair is sitting, I don't know if you're addressing me or addressing the chair. The chair's been
Right.
appointed tonight. I don't know if you're addressing me or you're addressing through the chair.
They've
Through
been
the chair.
addressing through the chair here, Frank.
Okay.
They've been addressing through the chair.
Okay. Thank you.
What's your email?
Any other comments? I'm trying to see just what you're referring to. You got the commissioner's correspondence and outside correspondence. Are those the?
He says those were reversed.
Right. Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you pull up your minutes from last meeting, if we go to page 2, the review of bylaws section, Chair Francis Lionmo made a motion to move the following items on the agenda. Items, planning staff report to number 10, correspondence to 11, commissioners correspondence to 12.
Page 2.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Frank. Or Laurie.
No, I think
You two battle it out on the screen. It'll be fun.
Mr. Chairman, through the chair. To Frank, I thought that we had it the other way around, and and I think when we were talking about this with staff, there was a little bit of confusion, but what was your desire, Frank, Mr. Chairman?
I wanted to separate them, obviously. Well, they are separate.
Yes.
But we wanted to defy what that correspondence was. And I think we said it was going to be coming from another body, from outside, through you. And we talked about, I felt we shouldn't be responding to people's emails. You know, if the commission gets an email, I wanted that, like all our correspondence, to be through the planning office, commissioner correspondence. I think, is that what you're talking about, Laura?
Right. I was just asking what your preference of the order would be. Did you want the outside correspondence before the commissioner's correspondence or after? I think that's what we're trying to figure out.
I think outside correspondence before, and that will give
Before.
the commissioners an opportunity to comment if it would be time to comment on something like that. So the outside correspondence would come in before, and then the commissioners could correspond, and perhaps they may be at that time have enough information to go ahead and answer that outside correspondence. And that would move things along as well.
So,
So if it's a question that, if it's a question that
if
can be
that's-
answered by, right on the spot, we can answer it, or we can't, but it'd be nice if we can answer them.
So,
Sure,
my,
go ahead.
my recommendation would be if that's fine with the commission, then we can make it that way. In that
So what-
order,
So what we're saying,
regardless of what the minute
Yeah.
showed.
so what we're saying on the second page of this, where you have the list, unless otherwise determined by the chairperson, you're going to move number 12 would become number 11, and number 11 would become number 12. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
So I'm going to amend my motion to accept, with the amendment being that we move number 12 to number 11 and number 11 to number 12.
Do I have a second to that change?
Yeah, second.
Whoever
Okay.
seconded, yeah.
All right. Could you read a motion, John?
We already got the motion on the table.
Yeah, but,
So we have to vote on the amendment first and then vote on the.
all right. Let's vote on the amendment to make that change. All those in favor of making the change?
Aye.
Okay.
So now we need to vote.
And now we need to vote on the main motion, which is to accept the change of the order of business on the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Done. Now we can get into some new business. Under new business, we have,
Mr. Chair, under new business, SPR number 1926, 161 Raffia Road application for a site plan review for proposed retail development per section 5.20, Garrett Homes LLC, applicant Mitchell Weiner, owner BL Zone.
thank you. I assume the applicants are sitting in front of me. And if we could state names and addresses and all that stuff for the record, please.
Absolutely. Is this on? Yep. Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matthew Bruton. I'm a professional engineer from BL Companies, address at 100 Constitution Plaza in Hartford, Connecticut.
And I am Doug Grunert with the firm of BKA Architects. We're the architect of record for the project, and our address is 142 Crescent Street, Brockton, Massachusetts.
Okay. Go ahead if you would.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I will, as I said, Matt Bruton, civil engineer. I'll walk you through the site plans, hopefully answer any questions you have, and Doug will obviously walk through elevations as well. So, site plan review for 161 Raffia Road, retail development. So existing conditions, if you guys can see the survey that I have up on the screen here. Yeah. Is it easier to use this then? Is that better? Okay, hear me? Okay.
So we can pick it up on.
Yeah, no problem. So up on the screen in front of you, I have the existing conditions. So just some brief information on the existing conditions. So a little over 2-acre parcel with frontage on Raffia Road. Raffia Road obviously is on the left-hand side where my mouse is kind of hovering right now. So we're particularly talking about the corner up here where my mouse is circling. Zone business local district with the butters obviously being JFK Middle School to the north, Four Corners Package Store to the bottom of the page, a residential development across the street, and then largely undeveloped to the rear. The parcel is currently vacant and undeveloped. It was previously used in the past years as a construction staging for redevelopment and renovation of JFK Middle School, but it's since been vacated. Topography is relatively flat. It does pitch from the site back towards Raffia Road. Elevation's going to vary between 126 and 123. And all utilities are present in the area, so water, sewer, gas, electric, telephone. Just going to scroll down through to the site plan, and I have 2 versions of the site plan that I'll walk you through. So again, same orientation, Raffia Road on the left-hand side, and this is more zoomed in to be centered on the roughly 2-acre parcel. So what we're looking to do here is obviously a little over 10,000 single-story retail development with a single access drive to Raffia Road. Everything you see here kind of in this dark hatch is proposed pavement area, and obviously the building is where my mouse is hovering now with a thick outline border. We are proposing a new sidewalk along the frontage where my mouse is tracing right now with a connection through the site there to the main entrance. We're proposing 34 parking spaces with 23 deferred, and I'll show you that site plan in a second, to match your total requirement per zoning of 57. So we are asking for a waiver for deferment. Otherwise, the site plan complies with all the regulations in your zoning code. Some other important things to point out on the site layout. Obviously, the main entrance to the building is kitty-cornered where my mouse is hovering right now. We have the appropriate handicap parking spaces on the side here as well. We show parking, obviously, in the front and side of this facility. We show an enclosed dumpster location where my mouse is hovering now, and a dedicated loading space here towards the rear of the building. I'm just going to scroll down one more. So this is showing the deferred parking location. Those are the 23 spaces I just mentioned. The plan has been designed fully to accommodate those if the commission feels that they should be built now or potentially in the future. So in terms of stormwater and everything like that, these have been accounted for if you wish to have them all built. I'm going to scroll down through to the grading and drainage plan. Obviously, there's an increase in pervious area since there's no development there now. So we need to provide a stormwater management system to deal with that impervious area. So the goal of the stormwater management system is to comply with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, 2002 Erosion and Sedimentation Control Guidelines. The big really kind of tenets of those guidelines are to match existing drainage patterns, to mitigate peak flows, and then to provide water quality. So how we're doing that here, we're analyzed storms for 2 through 100, and the goal is to get to 80% TSS removal. So the proposed system that we do have here, and if you can follow the mouse a little bit, I know it's a little bit small, but we do have catch basins with deep sumps and hoods throughout the parking lot. We have hydrodynamic separators. All of these are, the goal is to capture surface runoff and direct it to the detention basin. The main detention basin is along the south side, the bottom of the page where my mouse is floating now. This will obviously retain, mitigate the peak flows with eventual discharge to the stormwater management system that is in Raffia Road. And you can see our connection here where my mouse is hovering now. And again, just show you that there's no change in the design or stormwater management system if the deferred parking is built, and that's shown here on this second page. Moving further along, we have obviously proposed utilities. As I mentioned before, everything is either available either on-site stubbed. The prior construction site was using some water, and there's something stubbed on the property, or everything's in the street. So water, sewer, gas, electric, telephone are all available. In addition to that, we have developed an erosion and sedimentation control plan. The goal of this is to put this in place prior to earthwork operations to protect streets, neighbors, abutters from the construction operations. So things like this need to be maintained throughout construction and only be removed when the site is stabilized. And typically, stabilized means pavement and vegetation that's taken hold. So this includes things like a construction entrance, silt fence, silt sacks, temporary sediment basins, things of that nature to protect the abutters, as I said, and then the infrastructure as construction is ongoing. Let me see. Okay, so now to the landscaping plan. So there's 2 important aspects to this as well I wanted to point out to the commission. So we do obviously show landscaping per your regulations for obviously an aesthetically pleasing site for not only the abutters, but also for the actual applicants. 2 tenets of your or important points from your regulations applied to this plan is the buffer to residents. So the residential zones, as I mentioned before, are JFK is technically a residential zone. And then to the left of the page across the street to Raffia Road is also a residential zone. So we do show in this version of the landscape plan a robust buffer in this area between us and JFK, and also in the frontier to the Raffia Road residential development. I will point out that we do have an alternative plan that does shift the majority of the landscape buffer along the frontage to the side. In discussions with staff, the residential development, the condo development across the street, the residence is actually further away. Directly across the street is the open space for the residential development. So there's actually nobody that's actually living in kind of direct eyesight of this. And it's the open space and won't ever be built in that area. So we're proposing an option to you to move that landscaping from along the frontage to the side to hide more of the buildings and provide separation between us and the package store to the south, which is the bottom of the page. But either option, obviously, is proposed, would comply with your regulations. We're just giving an option here that might be more amenable to the board. So that's a kind of a high-level overview of the site plans. I'll pass to Doug to talk a little bit about the building design and architecture, and then be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Matt. There they are. Once again, for the record, my name is Doug Grunert with BKA Architects, and I'm going to just run you through these elevations real quick. Can you actually zoom into that upper right one? Yeah. Thank you.
Make sure you speak up a little bit, please.
Is that better?
Thank you. That's better.
Okay. So this is the frontage that along Raffia Road, which is the main entrance. The entrance, as you saw from the site plan, is a corner entrance, so you're going to see those sliding doors on two fronts. The materiality is a red thin brick wainscot, about 36 inches tall, and you have various shades of gray clapboard, which is a cementitious hardy. Light gray and dark gray capping the over the entry, which would most likely be for the signage. The top of the building is capped with a sloped gray mansard roof with light gray shingles. And then the front of the wall there is some light gray spandrel glazing, window boxes with decorative shutters. Pretty much the verticals and the horizontals are framed with a light gray, a white AZAC, white hardy board trim, and basically just to kind of frame the facade. Can you go to the one right below it? No, one right above that. Down. All the way down. Okay. So this is the parking lot side, so pretty much the materiality continues. As you can see over there on the right, that's the angled entry there. This side has two additional doors, which is the double doors for the receiving area and the single door for the egress. The mansard terminates just around the corner just to pretty much cap the signage band and whatnot. Can you go scroll up? So this is the opposite side. This is basically, what is it, north-south?
This is the south-facing, the Four Corners package store.
Right. And this is the low point of the roof. So the roof design is pretty much a 3/8 of an inch per foot sloping roof, which is essentially flat. And it basically drains to a continuous linear gutter running across the entirety of that rear there into the downspouts that go piped into the stormwater management system. We continued the brick wainscot across this, and the wall cladding is a vertical metal batten in a dark gray. And the EPDM roofing is what we're showing there for the material. We are screening each of the rooftop units with the same material, so the rooftops will not be visible from any public ways. And if you can go up to the very top.
I just want to point out, I'm going to take this. So the landscaping that I talked about, shifting it from the frontage to the side, this would help screen this facade from the liquor store.
Thank you. this in the upper left corner is the actual rear of the building. It's going to be the same vertical batten metal wall cladding and the dark gray. And you can actually see the profile of the sloping roof there too, so it can actually illustrate how the water is drained. The rooftops are not screened on this side, but there is no view from the public way from that. The lighting shown on the building is illustrative, but it will follow the photometrics plan that's been submitted, and I believe it's all dark sky compliant fixtures, LED. And with that, I think we welcome your questions.
Anybody have questions for the applicant? Linda?
Through the chair to staff, you have a lot of comments. I'm sorry, you have a lot of comments here. Have they all been addressed?
Yes, when it was appropriate for staff to do the report, I was going to go through each of these and give you an update.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, just a couple of questions that I had when I was looking at the sites. And maybe these are just more curiosity. The placement of the garbage or the trash can and maybe your kind of loading dock, if you will, why can those not be in the back of the building? And I'm thinking about, in my head, aesthetics, and I get that you're going to have bushes and trees and stuff but my concern is the aesthetics, so why could they not be towards the back of the building?
So the loading area, if you could see the screen where that's where the truck would park, right? And then as Doug pointed out on the facade, the entrance to that with the ramp is in this corner right here. The dumpster across the way obviously lends itself for a truck to come in, obviously, and come right in, as opposed to doing some blind turning. But I don't think there's any issue if you wanted to slide this kind of more behind the building. It would obviously be an enclosure with landscaping as well, so it's not going to be very visible, but we can certainly look at an alternative location if that's the desire of the commission.
That would definitely be my preference.
Thank you. Any other?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I have one,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Ken.
Chair.
Want to get Frank or?
Go ahead, Frank.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the applicants, just a couple of things. The site plan, maybe we can go over a little bit, I'm not sure if you did, how we got to the open space and the benefit to the town relative to where the adjacent to the junior high school, the middle school. Because as you remember, during the subdivision, we kind of moved things around a little bit, and upon the approval, everybody was really happy that there was a nice piece of land that was going to abut the middle school. So you can explain about that. The other piece, when you were coming in for the subdivision, and you mentioned it again tonight about stubbed utilities, and I think I asked about the utility size relative to fire protection. And the answer was at that time that you already spoken with the authorities and you didn't think you were going to need fire suppression system. But in the same meeting, at the same time, you didn't even know what was going to be built there, and you couldn't provide the information to what was going to be constructed there and what the contents were going to be. So that's my second question. I just want to know if that's been reviewed, taken care of, and so on. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. So in terms of the subdivision, I know that was a prior application in front of the board 6 months, a year ago. So a portion of this land, obviously, I'll just zoom out here on the survey. So this is a large piece. Obviously, the liquor package store here is this small kind of wedge. Everything else is under the same ownership. So as part of the subdivision for this retail development, there was that stipulation that the open space be conveyed as well to town benefit. That's in this upper area here as well, which is adjacent to town property with JFK. I believe staff can confirm, but I believe that process has been finalized or about finalized with the prior subdivision application. So yeah, that was I guess a requirement as part of this application that was complete, but get a good reminder of the benefit to the town as this applicant has come through the process. I'll pass to Doug in terms of the fire protection question.
In terms of determining the requirements for fire protection, it's usually based upon square footage, which is usually based upon the use group, which is mercantile. And in Connecticut, you are allowed up to 12,000 square feet per fire area unsprinklered. And that is, this building is below that.
I believe as
Okay,
well.
so
this
thank
is-
you for, no,
Sorry, just
I'm
one
sorry,
one
no,
more-
it was me.
Yeah, I believe it has been reviewed by the fire marshal as well, and there are fire hydrants along Raffia Road. So I believe he was comfortable with the location of the fire hydrants in proximity to the building, with it being unsprinkled.
Thank you for that. If you remember, during the subdivision, it was unknown what was going there, so thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ken.
Through the chair to staff and also our people appearing tonight. I do have three concerns. I know Commissioner DeGray already brought this up, I think, in the general review from staff, but I'm concerned about the traffic report, about the driveway issues. Our report states that at this site, right out does not make sense for delivery vehicles. I guess the traffic report did not appear to analyze the exit driveway for truck movements in general. It was just a right turn only. So that was analyzed. So I'd like to see some resolution of that traffic issue with the entranceway going right and or left. And should we have a right turn only, or should we do something different, or do we need to make some modifications there? And in addition to that, there was a comment by the fire chief, I believe, about leaving a 5-foot opening around fire hydrants and moving the vegetation back. I think that came in on an email. You may not have been aware of that.
I think that's under
That's
the other.
for a different application.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You are correct,
Sorry,
but
wrong one.
next group.
I'm sorry.
Get ready, whoever's next.
Okay, and the other one is the traffic situation with JFK. I believe we need to address that. How can we make that better? I realize it's probably only a couple hours a day that there's a concern, but, that is a large school, a lot of school buses going by there during a 1 hour period or a 1.5 hour period, a couple times a day. So we need to address that. Thank you.
I can certainly speak to that, Mr. Commissioner. So obviously, you guys, I think some of you were at least on the board for the prior applicant. Obviously, the parking layouts and delivery has been changed with the layout of the drive aisles to make sure the trucks can safely maneuver around the property without affecting parking spaces and have more dedicated space to turning around. It's hidden behind the building, which I think has all been received positively during discussions with staff. We've also reviewed with the your traffic police officer as well. And we did have a discussion with him about truck traffic and the school traffic. So in regards to that, we are very amenable to putting that no right turn only sign at the driveway entrance. I grew up in Enfield, proud Fermi grad, went to JFK, very familiar with the area. There's really no reason for a truck, in my opinion, to take a right here. If you're going to a different store or to the highway, you're taking a left. You're going to Weymouth, you're going to 140, right? And then for a retail business, you typically see kind of peak hours during the afternoon commutes or the Saturday commutes, which is 4 to 6 p.m. And then on Saturdays, probably 11 to 3, which is great because that's off times for the school. And I do know as well that the driveway that is closest to what is an exit only. And I believe with talking with local police that is staffed by a police officer crossing guard to make sure that when school is let out, that they really have control and they give priority to buses, right? So I think that's very critical. And then the frequency of trucks for a facility the size is typically about once per week. So it's not like something that's going to be a consistent conflict during school, the 9 months of the year that school is in session. So, I think the big outstanding comment from staff was the no right hand turn, and we're happy to oblige and put that in. So I think this is, a pretty good setup, given the abutting use.
Okay, does the once a week frequency you mentioned, does that include the smaller trucks as well?
No,
'Cause there are
they're-
smaller trucks that come in.
Right. Yeah. That was referring to the more the 18-wheeler
Yeah,
size
sure.
vehicles. Obviously, there could be smaller trucks like a water truck, bread truck, that sort of thing for the facility that would be coming more frequently. But again, that would still have to adhere to the no right-hand turn sign. And obviously, the size of those vehicles are way more maneuverable, more of like a passenger vehicle than a larger vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Through the chair. So the only disturbance to Raffia is for that storm drain to go across.
Correct. I'll zoom in here just so you can see it a little bit more clearly. So the dashed line that you see here that I'm tracing with the mouse, and then the gray patch that you see, that is the saw cut lines for us to get utilities across the road, and then obviously to construct the driveway with the curb returns, and then obviously putting the sidewalk in the right of way. So that is the only disturbance.
It's just the storm drain on the other side of the road. The rest are all stubbed in.
They're not all stubbed in completely. Let me double check. I think some of them are within the right of way, but actually getting in the travel lanes, the big one is the storm to get over here.
Okay.
Yeah. So should be a very brief construction period to cross the road.
Now, should we recommend a no right turn at the corner of Post Office also? Because that's a pretty sharp curve there for tractor trailers. I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's in my purview or the applicant's purview to.
I think it's a good observation, but I think in terms of this site plan, probably the appropriate way to deal with that would be to speak to the traffic agent and bring it up maybe with the traffic authority, and they could maybe post that independent.
I mean, most likely they're going to go straight to Weymouth because Weymouth will bring you right out to the highway.
I
Going
agree.
down Post Office will not do you any good, so.
Right.
But
Well, we could certainly follow up
Yeah.
with Matt Meyer
Okay.
and Traffic Authority and see if they think that that's a necessary thing
I
to
know
do.
there was a plan to rebuild that intersection, but that's long been shelved, I think, so.
It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
But, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Just a minute.
Real quick, Matt, on that also is a good question because going from Raffia to Post Office, there's no way you can make that corner with an 18-wheeler without taking out that whole. You can't do it. I've tried. I'm pretty good at it. It's not easy. You got to go. There's something had to be done with that. With that being said, I had a concern here that I was reading through this and the assistant engineer had a comment. It started off with on the plan sheet, GD1, both CB01 and CB02 have less than the town standard minimum pipe coverage of 2 feet. I could go on with this, but was that ever?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is kind of catch everything when I do the staff's report, gather what people have to say, and then some of it, I think most of it will be addressed when I do the staff report.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Because that is.
The answer is yes. Yeah, we did
Okay,
speak
it
to
is.
John Cabibbo.
Okay.
And spoke to him again today, and he felt comfortable with these being as conditions of approval, and then post-approval, they're going to have to modify their plan and accommodate John, which is more of a risk on their part than for us, because it's pay me now, pay me later is kind of the way I look at it.
Right.
So they're going to need to redesign to meet John's requirements post-approval. John feels that, he doesn't think that there's anything that they can't necessarily accommodate. So he feels comfortable doing them as conditions. If John didn't feel comfortable, he would say so.
Right.
And we would ask them to defer and not get to the Planning and Zoning Commission until John did feel comfortable. But in this case, he felt comfortable with
Okay. I just wanted to, because I read, I could, you know the rest of it, and
And
I just,
I can add to that, Mr. Commissioner. We looked at obviously the comments, and we know that we can accommodate these. We didn't want to set a new set of plans that did that or confuse anybody. So we know that we can get that 2 foot of cover, no problem. So that's really a minor change on our end. We're happy to commit that change can be made.
okay. One last thing real quick. The shrubbery in the front, taking that out and moving it,
Yes.
I really want to see it stay in the front. Add some more to the side. Great idea. Glad you thought of that. but I would definitely leave the front. And yeah, it's a corner. It's a lot busier section than you think. So I would like to keep the front the way it is, if we could. I personally think that should stay there, but hide some of that side too, because, you know.
Scroll up.
Yeah, so a great comment. So this is the first version. Obviously, you can see your regulations require some street trees. So you can see that row here right behind the proposed sidewalk. Your regulations also require internal landscaping related to the parking lot. So you can see obviously some trees around the islands centered on the building here as well. The buffering is really more of these kind of trees and shrubs in the middle. Obviously, we do show landscaping down the side. In that secondary version, the frontage trees stay the same to comply with your regulations, and the internal landscaped islands and trees stay as well. But the buffer plantings, I'd say, just slide down to the southern boundary here to make this a little bit more of a robust. But again, I think we can accommodate whatever version
and
the
that's what I
commission
was
feels
saying.
appropriate.
And even with that, the buffer, the more buffer in the night, to dress it up, it's a nice corner.
Yep, understood.
But that's it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Commissioner, Walter had mentioned before about, so that 4 corners that's there, and I don't know if this is their issue or if this is our issue, but that area is already busy, right? I live in that area. Is there anything being done? I see increased traffic with this for that 4 corners. Is that their issue or is that an our issue?
I believe that would be a town
That's
traffic
an our
issue,
issue.
not an issue for that one.
Yeah, I tried to address that in the memo. Really speaking to the traffic agents' level of service comments, and there's some discussion in staff's report about the fact that this has been zoned for BL for probably 40 years or more. Nothing has obviously really happened with it other than maybe the package store kind of thing. Over that period of time, over time, the world comes out to greet you and meet you, and then things happen and change. So I think we're kind of getting to that point. During the POCD update, there was really no discussion on the part of the Planning and Zoning Commission at that time to revisit that BL zoning or to take a look at the uses that are allowed in the BL and how those are permitted. So this is a site plan application, which is an administrative approval, as opposed to a special permit, which is also administrative, but allows you some discretion. In terms of a site plan application, kind of off-site improvements really aren't anything that you could condition. So unfortunately, we have what we have, and I think it's more on the town than
Yeah,
certainly
just,
on the
I guess, mentioning a concern of my own with, outside of this project, the increased traffic. So, thank you.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. It's a good comment.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I've got some comments. To the staff through the chair, are we going to, Matt, are we going to act on one or the other landscape plans? We're going to vote on that? Or
Yeah,
take a
there are 2
consensus?
sheets. I didn't get the sheet numbers,
Yeah.
but the idea was, you guys come up with a consensus about sheet A or sheet B.
Okay.
Vinny's suggestion was pretty creative. I didn't come up with a C, but Vinny made one up, so it's a combination of both, I guess. So, I guess the applicant can consider that as well. Staff's sense was that this buffer requirement to residential zones, it really relates to, say there's a residential neighborhood across the street directly from a commercial zone, and someone's proposing, a commercial enterprise. That's why we had these buffer requirements. So the only reason we looked at this kind of idea was because directly across from this is the grass area for the condos. So we thought, well, okay, why do we want to buffer and screen a lawn area? It just didn't make any sense to us. So that southerly elevation is, not the best elevation. You dress up the front, you dress up where the parking is and stuff. So we thought maybe there's a way to screen that a little bit better, understanding also that that's pretty open. The view as you're kind of coming up the road and you look into the site, when this is built, you're really going to see that south side of the building. And, that was the thinking that we had. But if the applicant's willing to kind of do both, that's up to them. I don't think we can require them to do both. I think, that's okay. That's okay. You can always suggest.
Well, I'd suggest we could maybe do a combo of both, right? Some plantings stay in the front, some shift to the side to kind of get the best of both worlds, because I do see the
I didn't know if
ability.
the client wanted to.
Sorry, the applicant behind me, but
Yeah.
yeah, another option would be to put a fence along the southern border as opposed to landscaping, if that's something commission found amenable.
Vinnie likes fences.
But to get to John's question, John, yes, that was the idea. It was either sheet this or sheet that. And
Yeah.
then we would include that.
There's a base plan, and then there's
Right.
an alternate.
Right.
The alternate is for the side, the base plan is for the frontage landscaping.
Because you'll see in
So-
condition number 16 in the draft,
Right.
I kind of left a blank there. And my idea was I was going to insert the sheet number from the one that the commission picked.
What are the two sheet numbers, just for clarification? The
which-
base is what?
It's LL-1. That's the base.
Yep.
Shifting the landscaping to the south is LL-alt, A-L-T.
Okay, thank you. Another question, again, to staff, through the commissioner. On the motion to approve, it says Michael Weiner. I believe it's Mitchell, because Mitchell is on the application, on the front of the application.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I can
So
fix
is
that.
it is Mitchell, I think. Right, the owner of the property is Mitchell Weiner?
Is it Mitchell or
Michael.
Michael Wajner?
I just knew him as Maxie. Yeah. But on the on the front, it is what I read was Mitchell. So well,
It's on there. Michael here, Mitchell here.
yeah,
Mitchell's on,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Mitchell's on the agenda, not on the.
right. On the engineering comments, Matt, so is it my understanding that the engineer never sent in his revised comments, or nothing was agreed to, that this is still open, or is it agreed to verbally, or are we acting on this evening, or are we tabling it until the engineer sends in his final comments, or?
No, I made it a point to talk to John Cabibbo, and because I was concerned about that as well. Because usually John either has a couple little small things, or recommend approval, or no issues, or that kind of a comment. So this was a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I made a point to talk to John about it, and I wanted to make sure that he felt comfortable doing these as conditions of approval. And I asked him several times, and he said yes. He felt that we could do this as conditions of approval. So I put his comments, I put a condition in the draft, shall address engineer's comments, such and such. And he felt okay with that. I don't
Okay.
think he wanted to delay it anymore. I think they're easily resolved.
Okay.
Relatively so.
All right, I'm just being
No.
sure, because what I've heard
At the
before.
end of the day, just as a general point, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of make this point, is that a lot happens post-approval. That there's a lot, once they leave the building here and you guys bless it, a lot of work remains with the technical folks in building and WPCA and other departments, our department, to get it to the next stage where they can actually pull permits and do construction.
Yeah.
So this is not that unusual. And he feels comfortable, so I felt comfortable.
Okay, and as a condition of approval, are we adding the signage at the exit for trucks, no right turn?
Well, I'm going to take that as, Mr. Chair, an invitation to go through staff's report.
Yeah.
Would that be appropriate at this point?
Yeah, go ahead while we're here.
Great, thank you very much.
We have,
Because I think I can touch on.
we have one question.
Do we have any more?
I did have a question, but I'm happy to defer to Matt.
If I don't address it in the report,
Please. Yeah,
hit me up.
please.
Okay. All right. So on page 2, under the technical review comments, it just kind of jump right in. The parking deferral, you're just aware that you'll be approving that deferral. We think it's worked out. We have a good design. It sets up the building in the future that if you get a tenant that requires more parking, the design is all kind of laid out. So we have no issues with that. The buffer modifications we talked about, we've got A, B, and C. I guess we got A and B, really, and maybe a C, but let's kind of stick with A and B if we can. Sheet LL1 or sheet LL alt, or some variation of those. The fire marshal's comments, we included that as condition number 12 in the draft. The stormwater was included as condition number 11. Let me see. The traffic, we really did talk about that. The prohibition on the truck turning movements, we included that as condition number 10 in the draft, so you'll see that there. And then on the miscellaneous, we did include a condition number 13 about the roof screening, roof units. We included a condition number 9 about outdoor storage and display prohibitions. The fence at the open space prior to construction or any kind of earthwork or anything, we can do that at just part of the pre-construction process. That's easily done. We meet, just so you know, for the new people here, one of the things we do post-approval is we have a pre-construction conference with the contractors and the engineers. We all sit down, we go through the approvals, we make sure that they understand what's required, permit requirements, inspections, schedules, field changes, stuff like that. So we do have that opportunity. So we would do that then. The EV-ready stalls are shown on the plan, which was good. That was something we needed to do. Moving up to the staff comments, I know there was a number that were kind of, I'll talk to you about it at the meeting kind of thing. Building has no concerns. We didn't anticipate that they would have any concerns. It's a pretty pro forma mercantile structure. There will not be sprinklers. We did include the fire marshal's comment in there as a condition. We did have a couple communications that went back and forth. There is a hydrant located. I don't remember exactly if it was maybe a few hundred feet to the south or.
Yes, as you go towards the Four Corners package store, there's one across the street, so it's a couple hundred feet.
Right, so there are hydrants there. So just to cover that, we did include a condition anyway, and he felt comfortable with it. WPCA, no concerns. Health Department, there's really no role for the Health Department in this. It's a retail building. And again, if there is, that's another one of those post-approval items that they would have to go get separate independent permits from the Health Department. Like if you're a restaurant and you require some kind of a permit from the health district, that comes after this. So I think that's about it. I'll change the name to Mitchell on that. And if you want to pick a buffer landscape option, and maybe I got Christian's comment or not, I don't know.
No, I did still have an additional question, if you don't mind. if that's all right. So I guess just to tackle, I'm sure we'll go around the room, but I do agree with Commissioner Grillo in terms of prioritizing landscape A. I would rather prioritize the view from the street, even though it is technically an open space across the street. That does at least prioritize, again, the view from the street. So there still is, even with landscaping A, there still is landscaping on the south end. So it's not as dense as the buffer, if there was some kind of in between. But let's just say for the sake of simplicity, I would prioritize A. And I also do agree with the, I'm glad the applicant is willing to work with us with the dumpster, relocating the dumpster to the back. So I don't know if that's something that would be taken as a condition or not, but I do agree with that. I think that's a great addition, and thank you again. And then I did have one additional item, which is a question for the applicant, kind of in their design logic, but then also just something for us to think about design-wise going forward. Kind of something that concerns me is the setback on this. I know we don't have a maximum setback, so I'm not saying you need to change anything. We can't make you change anything. But going forward, I think setbacks are important. Pushing buildings way far back from the street makes them less accessible from the street. I'm glad they did parking on the side and not all parking in the front. That does make it a little more accommodating. But again, I'm thinking about accessibility for all users and from the street, how it looks from the street. So just something for us to keep in mind as a planning and zoning commission. So ideally, I want to see the buildings a little closer. So maybe we consider different setback regulations. But for the applicant, what was your motivation behind going beyond the minimum setback? I know you had the landscape buffer, but you went beyond that. So I'm wondering your motivation.
Yeah, so it's, Salon, Matt again for the record. So it's a combination of obviously providing that landscape buffer and the frontage. We did obviously provide the accessibility, as you mentioned, along the frontage with the sidewalk and the connectivity from the street to the building, but also dealing with truck turns, being able to get them into the site and then continue them into the drive aisles. We had, I think, previously a little bit more closer, and they were turning around in front of the building and then backing up to the rear. But that was causing some concern with the conflicts between the truck delivery and then employees or patrons. So to be able to push it back and straighten it out actually gives us more flexibility on site with some of the larger vehicles, and then also complements the landscape buffer. So it's kind of a combination of the two.
Appreciate that explanation. And one final word. I appreciate staff working with the applicant to address that parking deferral. I think that's a very creative solution, and I just want to say I appreciate it.
Anything else?
So we're approving the previous one without the extra parking.
That's our desire, if you guys agree.
That's the one we're approving. Okay.
With the deferred parking. So if it got busier.
Frank, if he's got a question.
Frank, you up?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I wasn't clear on the condition of approval relative to town engineer. I didn't hear that read off, or what it was, the body of it.
Matt?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I tried to make it as simple as I could, so I just said that it's site-specific number 11. It just says that the applicant shall address the assistant town engineer's comments.
Which are
in the body of the memo. I thought I included John's comments verbatim in the memo. Traffic agent. Yeah, under the agency comments on page, I guess it's page 4 of the memo. If it's single-sided, it'll still be page 4. Under assistant engineer, those are those are John's comments. Do you want me to read those?
No, as long as they're there and they talk about that 2-foot cover and.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, okay, as
Yep.
long as it's something they can refer to.
Oh, yeah, the applicant has these, they've reviewed these, they understand what they need to do, and they'll work with John post-approval to get these addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Walter?
So on page 3 about the roof unit screenings, I mean, are we gonna make them do the back too? I mean, to me, we gotta let these units breathe.
I don't have any particular druthers. Roof screening is kind of a standard that we
I can see
apply
on the 3 sides, but on the back, look.
to everything. Yeah, usually it's
the
like, you know,
coyotes can't see
parapet
it?
wall as opposed to, you know, the individual units themselves. I don't know if that's an option, the architect.
We're happy to screen the rear if the commission feels it's appropriate.
Okay.
Anyone else? Matt, you all set?
I just wanted to say that the dumpster in the rear would be an additional site-specific, we'd call it number 18, if you want to add that, and then adjust the numbers, obviously, going forward for that. If you wanted to include, I don't know that we necessarily need to include the parapet on that side as a condition, as long as you understand and you concur. I feel comfortable, if you feel comfortable, that that's what we'll have in the final plan. Is that, do we need to include it as a condition in the approval, or can we trust you to do the parapet on that one
You're talking
side?
about the screen, a screen wall to the unit.
A screen wall
Not a
instead
parapet.
of, right, not,
Yeah.
I call it a parapet.
Yeah.
My bad.
Just clarification.
I'm just a planner,
Just want to make sure it was.
not an architect.
missing a
so
parapet.
I don't know. Alcoves, I get confused. All that stuff. So, we don't have anything more to add. If I guess the consensus is the Plan A, so to speak, for the buffer, is that?
The base
The
landscape
base
plan.
one,
yeah.
so whatever the sheet number was
Sheet
for that.
LL1.
Yeah, we'll include that in the condition that has to do with the buffer.
And what's the dumpster language we're talking about for condition 18 now? We're adding a condition?
Dumpster shall be relocated to the rear of the building. Okay?
To the rear of the building?
Rear of the building.
Okay.
Mr. Commissioner? So can I ask just a question? So would that mean, like, for employees, and I'm just thinking about, like, the functionality of the dumpster, moving the dumpster to the back of the building, is it easier for employees, or is it going to be easier to move a door there for people to take trash? I'm curious. I'm thinking about employees and.
So the employees would obviously be leaving. Employees would be leaving from these rear doors here, right? So this was a kind of that straight, short walk to the dumpster location, right? This line where my mouse is floating over.
Right.
The condition I believe you're talking about is relocating this dumpster. So I imagine it going in this back corner here. So it's still accessible. It's a little bit of a longer walk.
Okay.
I don't see it as an issue
Okay.
For the employees.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody all set? Okay.
Well,
Are we
Mr.
ready
Chair,
to move on this, John?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve SPR 1926, application for site plan approval, 161 Raffia Road, Garrett Homes LLC applicant, Mitchell Weiner owner, Tim Hewell PE applicant's representative, BL Zone, per the reference plans, reports, and application materials listed herein with the following modification and conditions of approval. We're adding a condition under site-specific conditions, which would be number 18. That would read dumpster to be relocated to the rear of the building. Also, condition number 16 would read this approval shall include a buffer design depicted on sheet LL1, and that's in reference to the landscape design, and making it a total of 33 conditions total.
Second.
Okay, could you call the roll, John, when you get a chance?
Frank Alamo,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Ken Helinski,
4.
Vincent Grillo,
4.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Moving on. Site plan
Yep.
review.
Site plan review number 1929, 525 Enfield Street, application for site plan modifications per section 5.20, 525 Enfield Street, LLC, applicant, owner, map 33, lot 263 to 267, zone BG.
All right, good evening.
Yeah, name and address for the record, please.
Dana Steele, professional engineer with J.R. Russo and Associates, 1 Shoham Road, East Windsor, Connecticut. Here tonight with Bob Artioli Jr. from Artioli Dodge. We were here back in February of last year and received approval to rebuild the dealership that had was destroyed by fire, and they're making good progress. And as is often the case in construction, minor changes come up during construction. Things need to be adjusted. Your regulations do allow staff to approve certain minor modifications without coming back to this commission, but specifically, your regulation says that if we are adding parking spaces, which we're not, or significantly modifying parking, which certainly could be argued that we are, and if we are making minor modifications to the building, which in a sense we really aren't making any changes to the building, but if changes involve changes to landscaping, that's another one that triggers us coming back. So we're coming back to you because of parking and landscaping. I submitted a letter to Matt dated January 8th, in which I listed the 9 things that have changed on the site plan. I've indicated them on the plan through revision clouds just to clarify what's changed on the plans. But Matt suggested I should keep it brief, so I'm going to I think if you agree, I would focus on those 2 items that really relate to why we're back here. If you would like me to go into more detail about some of the other technical items that normally staff would just review, please let me know, and I'll be happy to give you all the nitty-gritty details about drainage and curbing and all the kind of things. But let's focus on the parking first. So this site is located on the east side of Route 5 Enfield Street, and the building's in the middle of the site, and there's parking on both to the north and to the south. The area that's changing is the parking to the north, this area here. The applicant, after rethinking about it after we had submitted our application initially, said, you know, we think that the parking would work better for us if we turn the aisles so that they're running north-south rather than east-west. Originally, they were running east-west, so it's really just we rotated it 90 degrees and had to reconfigure things. It means we had to move some light poles around to fit with the new location. The end result was essentially the same amount of parking. We lost 2 parking spaces, but we gained some display spaces, and we still have enough parking to meet the parking regulation requirements. So. And the other change, number 2 in the letter, was that they had more parking, customer and employee parking in the front here, and we've moved more of that now to the back of the site. So just shuffling things. We had more vehicles for sale parked in the back. Now more of them are parked up here in the front, and fewer in the back. So just a shuffling around of parking is the parking change. Regarding landscaping, there was 2 changes to the plan, and let's see if I can find the landscape plan. The 2 changes relate to 2 separate issues. One, in this southeast corner of the showroom, we had missed the fact when we originally submitted our application, the architect had shown an opening here on this on the front side and on the side, and the intent was to allow cars, and it would be all paved underneath, covered roof overhead, but open air. So just a column right in the corner, and then an opening on the 2 sides so a car could pull in. And so when you buy a new car, they can pull it in out of the rain, and you can get into your car and then drive off. So I didn't realize that when we done the plans. It was, that's one of the problems with 2-dimensional drawings. Sometimes you don't see those nuances, and they didn't, and the builder didn't catch it either, and it was kind of later on. We said, wait a minute, we had landscaping around this corner of the building, so it was right in the way of that. So that's a landscaping change. So we've removed landscaping on this corner of the building because that was a feature they always intended, and we moved it to these areas in the front instead. So we didn't reduce the amount of landscaping; we just shifted its location. The second item regarding landscaping was we had the landscaping that we're showing in the front here was actually part of a previous application, and it had never been put in. So a previous application had said, we're going to put this landscaping in. So it actually wasn't my design, the landscaping, but it was part of a previous one. It hadn't been done. And so in talking with staff, we said, well, we need to clean that up. We need to do what we said we were going to do and put that in. So it was subject to the DOT because it's within the right-of-way, and so DOT could say, no, we don't want that landscaping. So, but we were happy to find out we got approval from DOT just recently. They approved the landscaping. The only qualification, they said, they don't want any shrubs to be over 24 inches high. And we took another look at the species that we had, and we agreed that, and we thought that this, again, we didn't specify these originally. They were just carried over from a previous approval. But one of them, we thought, this one could get a little higher than 24 inches. Let's swap it out. So we swapped out a species in the landscape islands here, but essentially it's the same as what you approved, just one change in the species here. Also, we received an email today from the fire marshal, Earl Provencher, who indicated he was concerned about the hydrant, which is at the corner of Fremont and Enfield Street, and so I talked with him about it briefly today, and said, yeah, if you need to be able to get to that hydrant, we understand. Why don't you just make a recommendation on how far we have to stay away from the hydrant? And so he said, let's go with 5 feet, 5-foot separation. That's fine. So I'd recommend you add a condition of approval to the standard conditions, since that just came in today, that the shrubs will remove however many shrubs we need to maintain that 5-foot separation from the hydrant. So those are landscaping changes, parking changes. If you'd like to know any more of the details about some of the other changes, I'd be happy to go through them. But I don't know. I think that concludes my presentation.
Okay.
Unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Matt, you got any comments? Or?
Wow. Okay. That's a record, I think, probably. Well, yeah. So, again, we try to move these along as best as we can. We don't like to have people kind of wait. So you'll see that under the agency comment section, there were, again, a number of these I'll get you later kind of things. So under the assistant engineer, he has no concerns. Traffic already reported they had no concerns. Building had no concerns. Again, this is a project that's already been approved and it's constructed, and these are really, a lot of these we would do just as field mods. The only two that we can't do are the landscaping and the parking changes, so that's really why we had to bring it to you. Under fire, I did hand out, I think, this email that we received today. I would suggest that about halfway through that paragraph, we can convert that into a condition easily to say no shrubs or bushes shall be located within 5 feet in all directions, yada, 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 to the end. So that's good news to hear that. WPCA really no relevance to this application. These are all kind of, surface changes. There's really nothing under the
Sewer
ground.
changes, yeah.
Yeah, no changes to the sewers. And of course, health has really no scope or no part really in this. So what I did also was to try to maybe save some paper was under the motion, you'll see that I simply put, unless otherwise specifically modified herein, all other conditions of public hearing 3058 shall remain in effect, rather than just duplicating all of those conditions here. So you would add a second condition about the clearance around the hydrant under that section. So that's really all we had.
Okay. Everybody all set? Okay, John?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve SPR number 1929, application for site plan modification to public hearing number 3058, 515, 525, and 543 Enfield Street, 525 Enfield Street LLC, applicant owner, Dana Steele PE, applicant's representative, map 33, lots 236 through 263 through 267, BG zone and Enfield Street design overlay per the referenced plans, reports, and application materials listed herein with the following conditions of approval. Seeing that there are 2 listed conditions, number 2 would read as follows. No shrubs or bushes within 5 feet of all directions of the fire hydrant located at the corner of Enfield Street and Fremont Road.
Second.
Comments? Frank, you got anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. John, if you got the roll.
Okay. Frank Alimo.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Ken Helinski.
4.
Vinnie Grillo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
May I say something?
That's it. Thank you.
When are you expecting to be done?
End of February. We're getting there.
Long road.
Yeah.
I will say it's looking pretty good, though.
Thank you.
It looks very nice.
Yeah, it looks
Thanks
very
for all your help. Thanks.
Moving right along, any other business proper to come before the meeting? There ain't none. Correspondence. Commissioners' correspondence. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind indulging me for a minute or two, I just prepared some remarks just related to general planning. I know I've talked about the subject of parking before. We obviously talked about it tonight. Fact of the matter is that parking concerns and traffic issues in town are decades in the making, a result of planning policies centered almost exclusively on cars instead of people and livability and walkability, bikeability, transit. Some of it is out of our direct control, like I said, transit and road design, things like these. But we do have a lot of influence, and we are responsible in a lot of ways. As innocent and good-natured as they seem at the surface, minimum parking requirements, as we saw here, and other policies like minimum lot sizes, setbacks, and overly segregated land use all have the combined effects of creating a landscape that spreads everything further away. both inducing expensive and inefficient car travel and creating an impractical environment for anything else, walking, transit, and even biking. And this is not even getting into other direct and indirect impacts on our environment, like loss of green space, increased impervious coverage and drainage woes, noise pollution, etc. And I'll admit, in a lot of cases, our town does kind of feel stuck in this pattern of development. And it'll take a long time to improve these things if we try. But there's still a lot we have to work with and a lot of potential. So to achieve this potential, we have to first recognize the impacts of our policy, our land use policy. I know, of course, we lament the potential increase in car traffic with each development that we approve, but we also explicitly demand more and more parking without any consideration for the value it brings and the downsides that it comes with it, which includes, limiting productive use of land and limiting tax revenue to support the town. Of course, some parking is going to be necessary for most any use of land in town. That's for sure. We can all agree that. Because of the reasons I mentioned, most people do drive for most trips. Totally, that's the reality of things. And any developer knows that their project in town is not going to be financially viable if they can't provide a reasonable amount of parking for their customers or residents. They don't actually need regulations to provide that, just as they don't need regulations to provide refrigerators for apartments. There's a growing realization of all these things, and towns and cities of all sizes across the country are wising up and adjusting your regulation. So I don't know how involved you guys are in the planning space, across the nation, but many of these towns and cities, bigger than us, way smaller than us, everyone in between, many are eliminating parking minimums in their downtowns to make it more walkable, and allowing developers to right-size their parking and allowing their parking authority to manage shared parking. So that's something to take note of. We don't have a parking authority. Many are doing that across the entire town and city, in fact. Some even change parking minimums to recommendations, which is a good way to balance with the developer. Say, hey, this is what we suggest, this is what we find best, but you know best what your customers need. And some even change them to maximums. So parking maximums are actually a thing as well, to limit the ill effects of excess parking. And some even recognize that parking can induce usage and in some cases require bike parking. So you get people, developers to add the type of development you want, and that spurs, that shows something to residents that says, hey, we want you here. Keep in mind, none of this equates to developers not building parking. It means parking will be built smarter, which is better for the town, not just for them. So just in conclusion, as we go forward and plan our regulation updates, I want to encourage us to recognize our impacts and try to do what we can to make the town a more friendly and nicer looking place to live. And we need to work with town council to ensure as a town we better manage our public street and public lot parking we already have, since those are very valuable and strategic assets for us, as we've seen with past applications and going forward, working in Thompsonville especially. This public parking is vital. So I hope this is something we can all come together on so we can, continue improving Enfield. So I appreciate your time, Mr. Chair, and thanks everybody for listening.
Planning staff report.
Wake up, Laurie. You're on. She's awake. I knew she was awake.
She is awake.
No, I've been here the whole time.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
Yeah. So, very well said, Christian. Very, very well said. Thank you for that. I want to just touch on the public hearing signs real quickly. We work very hard with our applicants up front before they even make an application. And when they come in and they need a public hearing sign, we always speak with them and, let them know it's their responsibility. They've got to have it up 10 days ahead of time. We tried to let them know if we notice that it's not up, but we can't be the one regulating every sign in town. And Rick Rochelle does go out and check to make sure the signs are up, and we do get a picture of the sign when the signs are actually up in front of the whatever building or whatever. So we do try to oversee this, but we can't be everybody's watchdog all the time. So just want to let you know that. So we will try to continue to do better with the applicants for that, but it's ultimately their responsibility. So we were informed by CROG, Capital Region Council of Governments, which is our regional planning agency, which is basically what used to be Hartford County. So they are working on their regional plan update, and Matt was kind enough to print out the sheets that kind of a good overview of what they sent us in the email. It's a live. There's an interactive section of it, so you can, like, if you go to the website, you can see different portrayals of what they're looking for. So basically what they're doing is trying to categorize development patterns within the region. And we noticed that Thompsonville is noticed as suburban and not urban. That may be because their definition includes high density and commercial development, but we're still investigating this. So we're not going to go too deep into it this evening, but we wanted to let you know that this was happening, and we're going to talk more with CROG and figure out what these categories truly mean and what, if any, impact there will be to the town of Enfield. Sometimes these categories are associated with funding opportunities, but so far they're saying that's not the case. So we're just trying to figure out what the story is, and we'll report back with more details, hopefully at the next meeting. And Matt, I don't know if you've got other comments.
No, I could go on, but I won't.
I know you could. We'll let you go on at the next
I'll do
meeting.
it off camera.
So, yeah. So we just wanted to make you aware of this for now, and we'll report back with more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I just, I have a question for Director Planner, through the chair to staff. Lori, thanks for noting that, and thanks for sharing that. I completely agree with you. I don't think, based on the definitions provided, that Thompsonville is the suburban development they're talking about. But then conversely, a layer after that, the printout doesn't show it well, but I did check it on the website. The entirety of Enfield, with the exception of Thompsonville, is defined as suburban edge, which does not reflect the town either. There's certainly a part of the town, maybe about 50%, 30% that is about that. But while you're pursuing that, I would take a look into at least the eastern half of town. We all know what the very suburbanized center of town is, and that does not meet that very strictly meets the suburban definition and not suburban edge. So yeah, thanks Lori for looking into this for us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Anybody else? Linda?
Just quick question through the chairman to staff. Do you have any, do you have to do this for the state, or is the state doing this for all towns? I went through this, I read it, I went online and was playing with it and that, but it was like, it was not an easy, well, maybe for Christian because he's younger than I am, but I admit I'm not, but it just didn't seem like what was the ultimate goal for this. If I were moving from, say, New York to Connecticut, I don't think I'd be, oh, wait, I know, I'm going to go look on this site and it's going to tell me everything. I'm going to go to the town and see it for myself. I'm not going to rely on information from a computer. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't understand the goal of this. I guess that's
I think Matt and I agree with that. We are really not sure what the goal of this is either. There was a comment made from the staff at CROG saying that this is to assist towns to understand what's happening with their neighbors and what they're doing with their towns. If you go just about anywhere out west from here, most states have regional plans that are actually followed. We have 169 little towns in the state of Connecticut, so regionalization is really difficult. So they're trying to grasp with the fact that they're trying to do a regional plan with, I think it's 33. I'm not sure exact the number of towns in the Hartford region, but so they're trying to do like a regionalization so we could have like some sort of understanding of consistency and variation. And a lot of times, as I said, the way things are categorized sometimes are associated with funding. So that's what we're trying to figure out. And welcome to our world.
I went through it and I'm like, I don't get what this is for. So at least I'm not alone.
To be fair,
Thank you.
neither did we. Neither did we. And we've been doing this for a long time, so that's we'll try to find out. At the end of the day, I think what Lori was getting to is that regional. If you go to Florida, Florida has regional planning, so regional planning actually has relevance in Florida. So they have concurrency requirements in terms of utilities and infrastructure. They have a host of things that they can actually enforce at the regional level. We don't have that in Connecticut. So our regional planning agencies and councils of government are kind of, and I'm trying to be polite, but they're kind of a hodgepodge of different initiatives and authorities and tasks and grants and plans and other kinds of things. But they do have to develop a regional plan. Every 10 years, just like we have to do our POCD, the regions have to do their POCD, and then the state has a POCD. And we won't go into it tonight, but, they're supposed to be consistent and, mutually kind of supportive and all these kinds of nice kind of things that planners love, but we just are not set up to do it. So we end up with kind of a Frankenstein kind of situation, and so we get these things, and then we try to figure out, well, what does that mean? How is it operational? What does it mean? Does it mean something in terms of grants? Does it mean something? Does it mean something? And we'll find out in the next week or so.
There are regional opportunities, like the hazard mitigation plan for the region or FEMA, things like that definitely work on the regional basis. But we're just trying to figure out how this ties into the regional plan and how it affects us.
Large-scale transportation project funding comes through the regional, the councils of government in one way or another. So that's also something. But again, it's kind of this assemblage of different authorities that really doesn't in totality get to what we do, which is really like land use planning. We plan zones and land use over the space of the town. Regionals don't really have any authority in that regard. So, but they'll have a plan.
Walter's got a question.
So you mentioned Florida, Georgia, they have county governments too, so that's
Right.
that's the whole different
Right.
ballgame.
That's what
We
it
used
is.
to have them
Where we
here.
don't.
Lori and I have worked out west. I lived in Arizona.
This makes as much sense as them putting the stop signs on the left side of the road.
Right.
So,
So, for another day, I guess.
Yeah. So we'll get back to you on it next week, next meeting, hopefully.
Okay, everybody all set on that one? Okay. Authorization for administrative approvals.
I don't believe we have any at this meeting.
Okay. Applications received.
We have one, SPR 1930, which is at 558 and 566 Enfield Street. Application for parking improvements per Section 9. This is the American Legion, post number 80, is the applicant, and Town of Enfield is the owner. Map 33, Lot 1 and 2, R33 and BL zones. So this is the expansion of the American Legion parking.
Okay. We had talked last week, Laurie, and we were going to have copies of applications, not applications, but a listing of the applications that were coming up that, because
Yeah,
one
my
week you had a whole
apologies.
bunch of them. Okay. Just so
Yeah,
we
it's
can get
the
them
only
next
one
time.
this evening, and
That's fine.
just because I was working from home. So
That's fine. That's
we
fine.
will do that next time.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor, please stand up. All right, now,
Was that Walter that made that motion?